Okay, good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we're in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Innu Cree, and Dakota peoples, and the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation and Treaty 3 territory. My name is Neil Harden. I'm chairing today's panel, and with me are Diane Knight and Richard Whitbread. The assessor today is Roddy Pontantia, and the administrative personnel is Twinkle Sharma. We will be hearing applications for revision of the business assessment rule in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act and the City of Winnipeg Charter. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we'll limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the board. The board is appointed annually by council and is independent of it in the city administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I'll confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You'll receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings live stream, recorded, and will be part of the public record. We'll be hearing items 1, 2, and 4 on their docket today. Ms. Sharma, please affirm the assessor's and applicant's testimony.
For sure. Mr. Assessor, please state your full name.
Rodrigo Pantania.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to provide at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Applicant, please state your full name.
Jerry O'Frimer.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to provide at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
All right, so the first item on our agenda today is 3655 Portage Avenues. So, Mr. Pantania, you can begin with that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The first file we have up this morning is file number 24-4809. The roll year is 2025. The address is 3655 Portage Avenue, and the business assessment ID is 37208. And the business that we're speaking of is a McDonald's operating out of that space. The total annual rental value we have in place is $66,660. The total area we have on file for the subject is 1,829 square feet. And the overall annual rental value per square foot, which includes the base rent and utility costs, is $36.45 per square foot. We do have one premise associated on the income stream for the subject property, and the one premise we have is at 1,829 square feet. That gives us a base annual rental value of $61,747. And that value is calculated using a modeled rental rate of $33.76 per square foot. From there, we have utility costs that are applied on top based on the square footage, 1,829 square feet, which gives us total occupancy costs of $4,938 and brings us to our total annual rental value of $66,660. For the rent comparable information, I have included, I believe, 6 there, 6 comparable properties. All of these properties are operated as fast food restaurants. They all have lease starts, the oldest from 2017. The areas range from 2,534 square feet or 2,334 square feet, apologies, at the lower end, up to 4,766 square feet. And the reported rents range from $30 at the lower end to $45 at the higher end. And that is my presentation. Thank you.
Okay, questions, Mr. Reimer?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Pontinia, we can agree this McDonald's is the McDonald's that's inside the Walmart at 3655 Portage, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and the comparables, the six you have there, those are all I'm assuming those are all standalone buildings?
Correct.
And do those properties have drive-throughs for the most part, or do all of them have drive-throughs? Do you know?
For the most part, without looking at each individual one, but I believe you're correct. Yes, they do have
Okay.
drive-throughs.
And there's, of course, because this is inside the Walmart, there's no drive-through for the subject premise, correct?
That's correct.
Did you have a chance to take a look at the rental information for this property as to the restaurant rents being paid that are not standalone properties?
In terms of the mailer and the information that I reviewed, I did take a look at the mailer, but I couldn't find an entry for McDonald's as it was licensed and operated out of the Walmart. So I believe it was just folded into the Walmart's financial information. From there, I didn't see any other information related directly to McDonald's.
Okay, fair enough. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Those are my questions.
Okay, Ms. Knight, any questions?
No, sir.
Mr. Whitbread?
I think I heard you say that these were all standalone restaurants.
Yes, sir. They are all standalone restaurants. So they are different from the subject property, which is operated inside of a Walmart.
I understand that then. Were you able to find any comps that were non-standalone, say in other malls such as this mall? Or
Given the time constraints that I had, this was the information that I was able to source in terms of lease information that would be comparable in terms of the operation that's being operated out of the premise. But I do acknowledge that unlike a freestanding restaurant, there is no drive-through, and the McDonald's does have to operate under the Walmart sort of license. So there is some difference, but this is just the information that I could find.
Okay, so in saying that,
Yep.
would you agree that a standalone would typically require a higher rent than an anchored?
I can agree to that.
Thank you. No other questions.
Okay, and I don't have any questions that haven't been asked and answered. So, Mr. Reimer, you can begin your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could I ask the board members and Mr. Pontinia to turn initially to page 2 of our submission, please? So this is a bit of an odd one, and I know this has been before the board in previous cycles. The annual rental value right now is $66,660. This is, you can see the photo at the bottom of page 2. This is the McDonald's contained within the Walmart, and Mr. Pontinia has actually framed it exactly right. This is a licensee arrangement. There's no lease. It's just a license that Walmart has granted to McDonald's for this particular premise. What's going to look strange, and I get it, the requested ARV, depending on how you look at this, would be 25,620. In the alternative, though, we're suggesting an ARV of no more than 46,980, and I'll explain that in a minute. So if we go to then page 5, please. So this is, of course, Unicity Mall. It's a very significant mall in the west end of the city. On page, sorry, I should have referenced this. On page 4, there's an aerial map of the mall, and the Walmart is the very large building that would be at the northwest corner of that site, and the McDonald's being within that Walmart. There's a number of other standalones. There's 3 small buildings at the front of the property. Those are standalone restaurants. There is also a couple of smaller buildings you can see that are basically just CRUs within the mall property itself. And I'm going to make reference to a couple of restaurant rents in those CRUs that I believe would be most comparable. So back to page 5, we did actually have the opportunity to take a look at the realty assessment. That ultimately was reduced by agreement to $81,812,000. And here's where sort of some of the complications arise. The potential annual rent that we applied with the Walmart space, just there is no separation of the Walmart and this licensee. So the net rental rate we had applied to the Walmart space was actually $11.34 a foot. it is that figure if one uses 1134 as the market rent, which is what the imputed rent to the landlord is for all of Walmart, including this space. That would result in the ARV of 25,620. Having said that, I'm actually going to focus on our alternate request because I believe in the context of this appeal, the alternate request likely makes a little bit more sense. So towards the bottom half of page 5, we do talk about the alternate request, and what we're suggesting is a net rental rate, notwithstanding the 1134 that was used for the purposes of the realty assessment. In this particular case, we're suggesting a net rental rate of $23 a square foot. We had reference to a couple of CRUs for sort of fast food restaurant space. There was 2 CRU units. One was the Subway lease of 1,259 feet at $24.50 a square foot under a lease renewal date in March of 2023, so just a month before the reference date, for 1,259 feet. Again, CRU space, there's no drive-through, so we thought that was quite comparable. Smaller space, mind you, we're about a third larger than the 1,259 feet that the Subway occupied. Then there's also a Quiznos lease of 1,513 feet that had a stepped rate of $24 a square foot under a 5-year renewal term that started in July of 2020. So both, of course, both those units are quite a bit smaller than the subject, but what we're suggesting then is, as far as the alternate request and as far as the, if one uses a sort of a market rate for CRU, restaurant CRU space, in this case, we're suggesting $23 a square foot in our alternate request. And so then at the bottom of page 6, there on page 6, there's 2 charts. There's the primary request, which is again the 1134 that was used with realty, but then the alternate request at $23 a foot, specifically having reference to the 2 other fast food competitors in the mall, not the standalones, because I think this is a very different animal, but rather the 2 CRU units at $23 a square, or sorry, $24.50 a square foot and $24 a square foot. And given the larger size of the subject, we're suggesting $23 a square foot. So at the end of the day, primary request is 25,620, but recognizing the unique situation with this CRU, the alternate request at 46,980 using the $23 a square foot. Thank you.
Okay, questions, Mr. Pontonilla?
I have no questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Mr. Whitbread? You're muted.
Sorry about that. No, I
Okay.
have no questions.
Okay, Ms. Knight?
Well, I just wanted to ask, other McDonald's that are inside other units, are they a lesser price per square foot like a Subway and a Quiznos are in a mall?
Well, so
Do you know?
that's what it's a very good question, Ms. Knight and Mr. Chairman. This is the only one that I'm familiar with that's contained as a licensee arrangement within the Walmart. So the quick answer, Ms. Knight, is I don't know of any other ones. So
Okay.
that's why I had reference to the 2 CRUs for the
Okay.
Quiznos and the Subway in this mall. Yeah.
So Quiznos and Subway, when are they the same rental price as other restaurants are in other malls in that area? Like everything's the same price roughly?
For CRU space, I'm going to suggest yes. That would
Yeah.
for the CRU space without the not the standalone, not the drive-through. So yes, I would definitely say they're very right within that range. And again, with the Subway, it was actually March of 23, so it was very close to the reference date.
Right.
So on balance, I would suggest those are very good indicators.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, just I guess following up on Ms. Knight's questions there. I think there's McDonald's in most Walmarts. Are they not, do they have separate leases or do they, are they, what makes them different from this one?
Yeah, good. And again, Mr. Chairman, that's a good question because what I will tell you is this is the only one that I'm actually familiar with that's assessed for business assessment separately. The quick to half step back, these are license arrangements. There's no granting or conveying of a leasehold interest. It's a licensing arrangement based on the occupant, of course, being governed by Walmart's, Walmart when they open and close and when they, they're basically governed by the Walmart lease as far as the property goes. I don't know of any other I'm not familiar with any other business assessments actually for the licensee McDonald's in those units. This is the only one I've had exposure to.
Okay. I seem to recall having done some many cycles ago, but I can't remember which ones or what
The-
the conclusions were, anything like that.
yeah, this one certainly has been before the board a few times. But again, so I'm not familiar with even other assessments of this kind of premise.
Okay. Thank you very much. I have no further questions then. Miss Knight, have you gotten the
Can we just take a quick break?
Sure. Okay, we'll
Okay,
take
thank you.
a 5 minute break or so and then come back at 9:20. Okay, thank you. Welcome back. We will move on to 895 Empress. So, Mr. Pontonnier, you can begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So up next, we have file 24-4698. The roll year is 2025. That's currently under appeal. The address is 895 Empress Street. The business assessment ID is 33012. And we are speaking of a CIBC. The total annual rental value we have is $554,160. That value is derived using 16,869 square feet at a total rate, including utilities, of $32.85 per square foot. For the subject property, we have two premises on the income stream. For premise 26538, we have 10,831 square feet listed at $32.57 per square foot. That gives us a base annual rental value of $352,766. From there, we do have the occupancy costs that are added on top, which comes out to $29,244, which gives us a total annual rental value of $382,020. And then for premise 33344, we have 6,038 square feet at $25.81 per square foot for a base model rate, which gives us a total annual rental value of $155,841. From there, we do have the occupancy costs added on top of $16,303 for a total annual rental value of $172,140. And when combined together, it gives us a total annual rental value of $554,160. We do have some subject lease information on there for the subject property at 16,869 square feet, or the total area that we have on file, and we have that at $27 per square foot. And then from there is where I want to offer the recommendation. So the recommendation that I was able to offer, it uses a total blended rate on the subject property of $28 per square foot. And that $28 on the total subject property, it gives us a revised annual rental value, excuse me, I just have it on here, of $517,860. 517,860. And that's the recommended value that I'm putting forward.
Okay, Mr. Reimer, how do you feel about that number?
We are in agreement.
Okay, 517,160.
Actually, I believe it's 517,860, Mr.
860.
Chairman.
Yep.
860, of course it is. I can't even read my own spreadsheet.
Yeah, 517,860.
Okay. All right. Any questions, Miss Knight?
No.
Mr. Whitbread?
None, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to our last property, 1749 Alice. Miss Knight, do you have those?
I just have to get that. Just a second.
Okay.
And while Ms. Knight's looking at that, Mr. Chair, to the extent it helps, we're simply seeking a 54-1 confirmation at this time, to the extent that helps expedite matters.
Okay, yes. Yeah, you're right. There was confirmation requested.
Okay, I've got the applicants open now.
Okay, so Mr. Putney, you can begin on 1749 Alice Unit G.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So up next, we have the final file looked at hearing this morning, file 24-4659. The roll year is 2025. The address is 1749 Ellis Avenue, Unit G. The business assessment ID is 55204, and the business name is Standard Arrow. The total annual rental value we have is $230,880. The total area we have on file is 16,662 square feet. And the overall annual rental value we have, including utilities, is $13.86 per square foot. We do have two premises on the income stream. We have premise 5296, and we have that at 5,063 square feet at a base model rate of $13.07 per square foot. That gives us a base annual rental value of $66,173. From there, we do have occupancy costs that are included on top of $13,670 for a total annual rental value of $79,860. For premise 5297, we have 11,599 square feet at a modeled rate of $10.32 per square foot, which gives us a base annual rental value of $119,702. And then from there, we have occupancy cost on top of $31,317 for a total ARV of $151,020. And when you add both together, it gives us the total ARV of $230,880. And we do have that lease information there at $13 per square foot at 16,662 square feet. And that's my presentation. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions, Mr. Reimer?
No questions.
Mr. Whitbread?
Thanks.
Ms. Knight?
No, sir.
Okay, your presentation there, Mr. Reimer.
Just
At
let me
this
get
time-
that open, sorry.
Sure.
I think he's just requesting
Oh,
confirmation anyhow.
okay, go ahead then.
Yes,
Yes.
thank you.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Ms. Knight. We are simply seeking confirmation of the present business assessment under 54(1) of the Act at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any questions, Mr. Pontonio?
No questions. Thank you.
Ms. Knight?
Nope.
Mr. Whitbread?
None, thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. We've now heard all items on today's agenda, and this hearing is now adjourned. Thank you once again, gentlemen, for your presentations.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you
Chair.
all.
Thank you, panel members. Thank you, Carrie. Everyone, have a good day.
Hey, guys.
You too. Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.